Shelley Rudman staged a sensational second run in the women's skeleton in Cesana Tariol as Great Britain harboured hopes of winning their first medal of the Games. The 24-year-old from Pewsey in Wiltshire was placed just outside the medals in fourth, going into the final run.
It's looking good, looking very good in fact. If she can get close to the time, she said in training the other day, this could be superb. A little bit untidy at the end, but wow! 1.11 seconds in the lead. And now it's a question of sitting and waiting and watching.
So Rudman was guaranteed at least a bronze when Canada's Melissa Hollingsworth-Richards failed to beat Rudman's time, and even gold was a faint hope when Diana Sartor dashed Germany's hopes of a podium spot as she finished slower than the Canadian. So it was all down to the last runner, the highly experienced reigning world champion Maya Pedersen of Switzerland. And she was just too good, finishing well over a second quicker. But Shelley Rudman's silver was a brilliant return, having never previously finished in a World Cup top three. It was celebration time for the host nation in the men's pursuit speed skating, after the much-fancied Dutch team crashed out of the semi-final in spectacular style. The Italian trio of Enrico Fabrice, Matteo Arnesi and Ippolito Sanfratello went on to claim gold in a thrilling final against Canada. Leading from start to finish, they crossed the line in 3 minutes 44.46 seconds, 2.82 seconds ahead of their rivals. The Canadians were also beaten into second place in the women's event. Germany's Claudia Pechstein, Annie Friesinger and Daniela Anschutz took a massive lead of 0.91 seconds over the first 200 metres to put their opponents on the defensive early in the six-lap race. Victory was particularly sweet for Pechstein, who now has 5 Olympic gold medals to her name. Russian Olga Paleva has been stripped of her silver medal in the 15-kilometre biathlon after becoming the first athlete of these games to fail the doping test. She tested positive in both her A and B samples for the drug Corfidon, a stimulant recently banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency. The International Olympic Committee said Paleva had been suspended from all Olympic events and stands to face a 2-year ban. Germany's Martina Glago is now awarded the silver, with Albina Akatova, Paleva's Russian teammate, moving up to receive bronze. So no Olga Paleva in the 7.5-kilometre biathlon, and that paved the way for France's Florence Bavarel-Robert to pull off a big upset. The 31-year-old, who had never won a top-level competition in 15 years of trying, hit all 10 targets before completing the course in a time of 22 minutes 31.4 seconds to clinch gold. Sweden's Anna-Karin Olofsson won her country's first Olympic silver medal in the discipline. Ukraine's Lilia Efremosa won bronze. Estonia's Kristina Smigan became the game's first double gold medalist when she added the cross-country 10-kilometre classical to her 15-kilometre pursuit title. World champion Marit Bjørgen, who dropped out midway through the 15K, claimed silver, more than 21 seconds behind Smigan in what is effectively a time trial. Hilda Pedersen of Norway took the bronze. The Smigan's win marks the third gold medal in Estonia's history, all of which have come in cross-country skiing. Snowboard cross made a thrilling Olympic debut at Bardonecchia, and the final run ensured that tension and excitement built all the way to the finish line. Slovakia's Radoslav Zedek had led for most of the run, but American world champion Seth Westcott in white overtook in the closing stages in what had become a two-horse race for gold.
Zedek taking the inside line into the kicker. It is so close. Seth Westcott knows gold is within his reach if he can hold on through the home straight. The first of the drop down. Zedek's got the inside line. Less than a board staked in it. Here comes Westcott over the line. Zedek crouching up. Oh! A photo finish. Paul-Henri Delarue is going to take bronze. Unbelievable. The Americans think it's Westcott.
Westcott did indeed win gold ahead of Zedek in silver, with France's Paul-Henri Delarue taking bronze in a sport which has added some real flair to these winter games. There was a thrilling conclusion to the men's Nordic combined event. Germany, who held a 10-second lead after the completion of the delayed ski jumping round, increased their advantage to a seemingly unassailable 47 seconds after 2 legs of the cross-country relay. However, after Austria's Felix Gottwald had clawed back more than 25 seconds, teammate Mario Stecker caught Jens Geiser a kilometre from the finish to go on and claim an improbable gold for Austria. Finland won bronze. Russian Evgeny Plushenko looked an absolute cert to take gold in the men's ice skating as he went into the free program with a massive 10-point lead from the short element of the competition. As if throwing down the gauntlet to his challengers to dare try to wrest the gold away from him, he chose as his music the theme to the film, The Godfather. And no one came close, as Plushenko nailed 12 jumps, including 7 in combination, in a pulsating performance that keeps alive Russia's chances of completing an historic sweep of all 4 figure skating gold medals. World champion Stefan Lambial of Switzerland took silver, with Jeffrey Buttle of Canada taking the bronze. Rona Martin got her curlers back to winning ways following defeat to Sweden on Wednesday with an emphatic 10-4 victory over an inexperienced Russian team. British skip Martin grabbed control against the rank outsiders by taking 4 points from the third end and never looked likely to surrender that advantage as she wrapped up the defending Olympic champions' biggest win of the tournament so far. Their reward was to spend their rest time watching their male teammates come from behind against Germany. Having come from 2-0 down to 2-all by the sixth end, skip David Murdoch turned the game on its head with a rare 2-shot steal with the last stone of the end. The British curlers then extended their lead to 7-4 in the penultimate end, and although the Germans got 2 back, the Brits were relatively untroubled to win their 4th match out of 5 to top the standings. The usual evening presentation ceremony took place in the Medal Plaza for those events which were unable to receive their awards out on the course. Australia's Dale Begg-Smith won gold on the very final run of a thrilling men's moguls ahead of Finn Mikko Ronkanen in silver, while Toby Dawson of the United States took bronze. Austrian brothers Andries and Wolfgang Linger were presented with their gold medals for their victory in the doubles luge. They did it by 0.31 of a second ahead of Germany's André Florschutz and Torsten Wustlich in silver. Gerhard Plankensteiner and Oswald Hasselrieder grabbed bronze for the host nation, Italy's 2nd luge medal of the week. China's Wang Meng grabbed the gold medal in the women's 500 metres short track skating. Bulgaria's Evgenia Radanova received the silver medal, while bronze went to Canada's Anouk Leblanc-Boucher. But the Canadian Olympic Committee have filed a protest with the Court of Arbitration for Sport, seeking Radanova's disqualification, claiming she crossed the finish line with her right skate in the air when both skates have to be on the ground. A decision is expected by Friday afternoon. France are up to 7th in the medals table after Florence Bavarel-Robert pulled off a big upset in the 7.5-kilometre biathlon for their 2nd gold of the Games. At 31 years old, Bavarel-Robert had never won a top-level competition in 15 years of trying. Sweden's Anna-Karin Olofsson won her country's first Olympic silver medal in the discipline, and Lilia Efremova gave Ukraine their first medal of the Games with the bronze. Well, the men's snowboard cross really brought these games to life with a magnificent display of skill and speed on the slopes of Bardonecchia. America's Seth Westcott just snatched the gold from Slovakia's Radoslav Zidek, while France's Paul-Henri Delroux took the bronze. Bitter disappointment for British hopes of a 2nd medal in the skeleton following Shelley Rudman's silver in the women's event on Thursday. Her boyfriend Kristen Bromley was in the bronze medal position going into the final run and started well, but it all went wrong in the closing stages. He finished well outside the medal times for a 5th place finish. Teammate Adam Pengilly finished in 8th. Canada's Duff Gibson became the oldest gold medalist for an individual event in the history of the Winter Olympics at the age of 39. Fellow Canadian Jeff Payne won the silver. Switzerland's Gregor Staley was 3rd.
Zoe, just on the inside, she's pulled herself into third, she's been wiped out.
Lady Luck wasn't smiling on Great Britain's Zoe Gillings in the women's inaugural snowboard cross finals. First cut up in her elimination heat and then caught from behind in her last race by France's Corinne Ruby.
Ruby's on the outside, she's taken Gillings out. Zoe Gillings taken out.
20-year-old Gillings had to settle for an overall position of 15th. Well, the final of the event was no less dramatic. The first casualty was Canada's Dominique Maltese, who suffered a heavy fall early on, and then compatriot Maëlle Ricker wiped out, careering straight into the safety netting. America's Lindsay Jacobellis looked to have won gold as she opened up a massive lead over Tanja Frieden of Sweden. And then this happened.
This is a lap of honour for Lindsay Jacobellis. The Americans drama! Jacobellis is down! Oh, look at her! This is incredible! Frieden! Unbelievable!
So a euphoric Tanja Frieden steals the most improbable win thanks to some premature showboating from the American. Jacobellis couldn't believe it. Her coach couldn't believe it. And nor could the crowd. For Frieden, reward for just staying on her feet in the race as she steals gold. Jacobellis had to be content with silver. The bronze went to Maltese of Canada. The weather played its part on a blustery and snowy Friday morning on the slopes of San Sicario Fratevi. So much so that the downhill segment of the women's combined event had to be cancelled after the first competitor, Croatia's Nikki Fleiss, fell coming off the first major jump. The two slalom runs went ahead later in the day, with Austria's Marlies Schild leading ahead of defending Olympic champion Janica Kostelic, with the downhill now scheduled to take place at 1 o'clock GMT Saturday lunchtime. But there'll be no Shemi Alcott after she was disqualified after the first slalom run due to a minor infringement relating to the size of her skis. They measured 59.8 millimetres around the bindings, with the minimum required being 60 millimetres. Pretty harsh, but she'll be back to compete in next week's Super G. The first medals of day 7 came in the men's cross-country skiing, and what an exciting climax it was. Defending champion Andrus Veerpalu was the first to cross the line, posting a great time of 38 minutes 01.3 seconds. But with two of the other favourites close behind, the Estonian had to play an agonising waiting game. Czech skier Lukas Bauer finished a massive 15 seconds behind Veerpalu, but still pushed himself into silver medal position. So it was left to the final competitor, Bukke's favourite Tobias Angerer, to spoil Veerpalu's day. The German gave it all he could, but could only finish in third place, leaving Veerpalu to add another gold medal to the one he won in Salt Lake City 4 years ago. Quite a mixed field in this event, with nations you wouldn't necessarily expect to see competing in cross-country skiing. Robil Tekelmariam became the first Ethiopian to take part in a Winter Games, but only after having served a 5-day suspension for an abnormally high red blood cell count. Tekelmariam completed the course 9 minutes 52 seconds behind Veerpalu in 84th. 2 places further back was Kash Kurulbatar of Mongolia, who are competing in their 10th Winter Olympics, but for the first time ever, Mongolians are able to see the action back home on television. Kenya's Philip Kimberly Boyd lit up the start line with his big smile and came home in just over 53.5 minutes in 92nd. Costa Rica's Arturo Kinch will be 50 this year, but even a seasoned campaigner like him can find the Olympic stage a little daunting. Kinch finished in 96th spot, nearly half an hour behind the winner. Great Britain's women curlers had a disastrous time on Friday as they met title favourites Canada in their latest round-robin match. Rona Martin's team could only stand back and watch as their Canadian counterparts, led by Shannon Kleibrink, took a 4-0 lead early on. And worse was to follow, as the Canadians scored with 4 stones in the 9th end, stretching their lead to an unassailable 9-3 scoreline and finishing the match without the need to contest the final end. The defending champions must now win at least 2 of their remaining 4 matches to reach the semi-finals. Contrasting fortunes in the men's event as Great Britain continued their impressive form with an 8-2 victory over Sweden. David Murdoch's team raced to a 4-0 lead, but the killer blow came in the 4th end when the British team picked up 3 points with their final stone to lead 7-2. Team GB added 1 more unanswered point before Sweden skipper Pierre Lindholm conceded the match with 3 ends still to play. Sweden may now struggle to make the semis, but Great Britain are well on course. They remain top of their group with 5 wins from 6. Britain's sole figure skating representatives, brother and sister Sinead and John Kerr, were ranked 11th following the compulsory dance at the Palavela. The Kerrs will return to action in the original dance on Sunday, with the medals decided after the free dance on Monday. But they've little chance of forcing their way into a medal race currently led by Italians Barbara Fusapoli and Maurizio Margaglio. Former champions United States were sensationally knocked out of the women's ice hockey tournament with a 3-2 shootout loss to Sweden. The Swedes, who'll face defending champions Canada for the gold medal, came back from 2-0 down to level at 2-2 in regulation time. Goaltender Kim Martin was the hero for the Swedes as the Americans failed to score with 4 penalty attempts, while Pernilla Winberg and Maria Ruth scored to see Sweden home. Cherie Piper scored twice for Canada in a comfortable win over Finland to ensure safe passage through to Monday's gold medal match with Sweden. 6-0 the final score. Well, this may be the Winter Games, but for the competitors in the men's Super G, the heavy morning snowfall was less than welcome. They eventually got underway for real around lunchtime, and Norwegian legend Kjetil André Aamodt stole the show. The 34-year-old, who'd injured his knee finishing 4th in last weekend's downhill, retained his Olympic title, becoming the first alpine skier to win 4 career gold medals. Former Super G champion Hermann Maier of Austria goes into retirement having won silver, 0.13 seconds behind Aamodt's time, with Swiss Ambrosie Hoffmann taking bronze. But it's been a disappointing games for American Bodie Miller, having been disqualified in the combined earlier in the week. The Super G world champion and pre-race favourite skied out halfway down the course. Britain's Finlay Mickle came 22nd, nearly 1.5 seconds behind Aamodt, while his teammate Roger Cruikshank was a further 3 seconds back in 37th. The darling of Croatian alpine skiing, Janica Kostelic, picked up her first gold medal of these games with victory in the women's combined. Second quickest after Friday's 2 slalom runs, Kostelic was inside the overall time of her arch-rival Anja Persson of Sweden. She then had to watch and wait as the last woman down, Austria's Marlies Schild, pushed her close. But it was gold for Kostelic. Schild took the silver, Persson had to settle for bronze. The favourites failed to challenge for the medals in the large hill ski jumping competition. Instead, it was 19-year-old Thomas Morgenstern of Austria who set a new hill record with his second leap of 140 metres to take the gold. His teammate Andreas Koffler claimed the silver, while the man who won the normal hill event on Sunday, Lars Bistel, settled for the bronze. The pair who have dominated the World Cup this season, Jana Ahonen and Jakob Jander, finished 9th and 10th respectively. It looked like a South Korean clean sweep in the women's 1500-metre short track. Jin Sun-yu, Choi Yun-kyun and Byun Chun-sa all crossed the line ahead of the field, but Byun was disqualified for impeding. And that gave Chinese 500 champion Wang Meng her second medal of the Games with bronze. So favourite Jin took the gold and Choi the silver for South Korea. And it was a similar story in the men's 1,000 metres. South Korea's Ahn Hyun-soo winning his second gold medal of the Games when he nudged ahead of compatriot Lee Ho-suk. An, who won the 1500 earlier in the games, sped around the last corner neck and neck with Lee and American Apollo Anton Ono, but scrambled up to the finish and just managed to tip the front of his blade over the line first. So Lee took the silver, while bronze went to Ono, who was visibly disappointed, having scrapped with the two South Koreans for the last 3 laps. Shani Davis of the United States won his first gold of the Games, beating teammate Joey Cheek over the 1,000 metres speed skating. Pacing his race perfectly, Davis finished in 1 minute 08.89, holding off 500 metre champion Cheek by 0.27 seconds. Bronze went to Dutch veteran Urban Venemars, who came home third with a time of 1 minute 09.32. Kathi Wilhelm won a 6th gold medal for Germany as she ran away with the biathlon 10-kilometre pursuit. She missed only one of her 20 targets in the shooting and went on to win gold by well over a minute. The real battle was for silver. Martina Glago won it for her 2nd silver of the Games, making it a Germany 1-2, while bronze went to Albina Akatova of Russia. There was cause for greater celebration for Russia's women as they triumphed in the 4x5-kilometre cross-country skiing, despite being well adrift of the leaders at the halfway point. Julia Chapalova's storming 3rd leg put Russia back in contention, and Evgenia Medvedeva-Abruzova, skiing the anchor leg, was able to secure gold. Defending champions Germany won silver and Italy bronze. Favourites Norway finished a disappointing 5th. Biathlon legend Ole Einar Bjørndalen has yet to strike gold at these Olympics, and the wait goes on. The Norwegian, who won all 4 biathlon events in Salt Lake City, was leading coming into the final turn of the men's 12.5-kilometre pursuit and must have thought he'd done enough to win it when Vincent de Frasnay stumbled. However, as they raced for the line, the Frenchman produced an astonishing turn of speed to snatch the gold. Bjørndalen had to settle for silver, with Sven Fischer of Germany taking the bronze. Germany 1 lead the field after the first 2 heats of the men's 2-man bobsleigh. They held a massive advantage after the first run, which saw 20 teams better the previous course record, although this slip at the start of Heat 2 reduced their lead to just 0.06 of a second over the Canada 1 team. Great Britain's Lee Johnston and Dan Humphries had a good second run to sit 12th, and they'll be hoping to push into the top 10 during Sunday's final 2 runs. Great Britain's women started day 8, hoping to get their title defence back on track against the host Italy after losing to Canada on Friday. In a close contest, skip Rona Martin rose to the occasion, delivering a great last stone in the 7th end, which gave Britain a 6-4 lead. The home crowd lifted the Italians as they fought back in the 8th end to narrow the gap to 6-5. But the defending Olympic champions are showing strong form as they battled hard and saw off the Italian challenge, eventually securing their 4th win of the competition, winning 9-5. But it all went horribly wrong in the evening session against Norway. Rona Martin failed to dislodge 2 Norwegian stones with the final stone of the 9th end, resulting in her conceding the match with an end to spare. Norway with an 8-4 victory then, meaning Great Britain have to win their remaining 2 matches to be sure of going through. They take on Japan on Sunday lunchtime, followed by the USA on Monday evening. Meanwhile, the men have all but assured their place in the semis with a tense finish in their match against Switzerland. At 5-all, the Swiss had crucial last stone advantage going into the final end. With 1 stone on the tee, British skip Dave Murdoch sent in a beautifully weighted stone to set up a guard. So up stepped Swiss skip Ralph Stockley, who seemed to have judged it absolutely perfectly. It entered the house and stopped dead on the tee. But it wasn't quite good enough. Heartbreak for Switzerland then, who'll almost certainly miss out on the semis, while Team GB continue their march towards the medals. First, the Swiss stunned the Czech world champions, and now they've gone one better, embarrassing defending men's Olympic gold medalists Canada 2-0 in the latest in a string of upsets in only 3 days of men's hockey. Canadian-born Paul Di Pietro scored twice in the Group A game to give a team with only 3 NHL players to its name a chance to win the group. continuing bad weather has meant another of the blue ribbon events, the Women's Super G, being postponed. Great Britain's Shemi Alcott was hoping to make amends for her disqualification in the combined event, but because of falling snow and poor visibility, referee Atlee Skardal postponed the race until Monday morning. The mist descended on the pistes of Pragelato for the start of the men's cross-country relay, so much so it was difficult even to make out the 16-strong field. When the picture did clear, it was the Canadians who led just ahead of reigning world and Olympic champions Norway, with Sweden and Germany in hot pursuit. It wasn't until the third of the 4 10-kilometre stages that the field began to break up. Italy's Pietro Pile-Cotre stepped up the pace to create a 5-second cushion over Sweden, with the chasing pack a further 13 seconds back. Christian Zorzi was the last of the Italian team to go in the final stage, and he led from start to finish. In fact, by the time Zorzi hit the home straight, the lead was more than 30 seconds, time enough to lap up the home support before crossing to take gold. The battle for silver and bronze went down to the wire, with Germany just nicking it from Sweden by just 0.3 of a second. Defending champions Norway added to their dismal performances in this year's cross-country, finishing over a minute off the pace in fifth. For the jubilant Italian quartet, who narrowly missed out on gold in the last Olympics, this was a sweet victory. This was their first gold medal in this year's cross-country and Italy's third of the Games. Marianne Timmer from the Netherlands clinched a surprise gold medal in the women's 1,000-metre speed skating, a full 8 years after her first Olympic success. Timmer, a double Olympic champion at the Nagano Games in '98, was bitterly disappointed to be disqualified from the 500 metres earlier in the week and came home in a time of 1 minute 16.05 seconds. Only Germany's Annie Friesinger could stand in her way as the last to go, but she finished just outside Timmer's time in 1 minute 16.11 to claim bronze. So the celebrations could begin for Timmer. Silver went to Canada's Cindy Klassen. Britain's Lee Johnston was head over heels when he and compatriot Dan Humphries moved into first place after their fourth and final run of the two-man bob. But the celebration was a little premature, as the next 14 runners all came down quicker. The fastest of them was Germany's Andre Lang and Kevin Kusk, who held on to their #1 placing from the third run to take gold in emphatic style. They edged out Canada's Pierre Luders and the Sal O'Neill Brown, who took silver. Switzerland's Martin Annan and Beat Hefty won bronze. Britain's men's curlers are guaranteed an Olympic medal match despite suffering their second defeat of the round-robin competition to the United States. The match looked beyond reach after just 3 ends, American skip Pete Fenson securing 4 shots to give the US a 6-1 lead. But Britain made a real fight of it, and 2 excellent draws by Warwick Smith in the penultimate end brought the score to 9-7 with 1 to play. But it proved not enough. British skip Dave Murdoch could only manage to take 1 shot, but a win against Finland tonight should see the men head into the last 4 as group winners. Well, they went into their final round-robin match safe in the knowledge that they'd already qualified, but a win would have been the icing on the cake. However, in the third end, skip David Murdoch's stone proved too heavy, allowing the Finns to steal 3 points from which Great Britain never recovered, eventually losing 5-2. But they're through to the semi-finals and in with a medal chance. A very different equation for the women, who had to win their match against Japan to have a realistic chance of reaching the semi-finals. But Japan raced to a 6-1 lead, but then Rona Martin scored a 3-stone win in the 6th end to close the gap to 6-4. But the British skip turned from hero to villain when her final stone slid down the sheet, through the house and out of the back door, leaving Japanese skip Ayumi Onodera a simple shot to clinch victory 10-5. So for Great Britain, it reads 1-4, lost 4, and even victory over the USA on Monday may not be enough to see them through. Tatiana Navka and Roman Kostomarov kept Russia's bid alive for an historic figure skating title clean sweep, with another gleaming display in the second of 3 disciplines, the original dance. They go into Monday night's final programme in the gold medal position. While Britain's Sinead and John Kerr acquitted themselves well to hold on to top spot for a considerable part of the evening's programme before eventually finishing up in 11th place. The USA needed at least a draw against Sweden to ensure qualification for the last 8 in the men's ice hockey, but they didn't get it. Michael Samuelsson's third-period power play goal earned a 2-1 victory for the Swedes to put them through to the quarter-finals. The USA will now need to beat Russia or tie in their final preliminary round match on Tuesday to guarantee their place in the knockout phase.